Hello everybody, Shrouded Hand here. Lost footage, it's pretty much a standard topic for any horror YouTuber, and I don't think I've ever covered it properly, so here goes. I've said in the past that some of the best horror leaves a lot of blanks for the audience's imaginations to fill for themselves. The human mind can conjure up something far more personal and disturbing than whatever the writer or director can show to them. That's probably the reason why we're so intrigued by lost media, knowing that there's something horrifying on a tape somewhere, but being unable to see it for yourself. You start to imagine various sickening scenarios of what could be on that recording. Today I'm going to focus on recordings made in two notorious British murder cases. So I'm going to start with the Leslie Ann Downey tape. Between 1963 and 65, Ian Brady and Myra Hindley carried out a series of torture murders on children abducted from the Manchester area. Their 5 known victims ranged between the ages of 10 and 17. Ian Brady would pick out children and Myra Hindley would gain their trust. They would then be lured away to a secluded location, usually Saddleworth Moor. There, Hindley and Brady would subject their victims to a sadistic sexual assault before killing them. The bodies would then be buried in shallow graves on Saddleworth Moor. For this reason, the killings became known as the Moors Murders. They were also obsessed with keeping a record of their crimes. Brady was a keen photographer, and he would often drive Myra out onto Saddleworth Moor to pose for photographs. A lot of these photos were taken at locations where they buried their victims. The most disturbing piece of evidence was found after Brady and Hindley's arrest in 1965. A ticket found in Myra Hindley's prayer book led police to a luggage locker in Manchester Central Station. There they found 2 brown leather suitcases. In one of the cases were 9 indecent photographs of their 4th victim, Leslie Ann Downey. 10-year-old Leslie Downey was abducted from a fairground on the 26th of December 1964. She was taken back to Myra Hindley's house, where she was violated and tortured before being strangled to death with a silk cord. Alongside the photographs, police found 2 reel-to-reel tapes containing a 16-minute recording of Leslie Ann Downey. She was screaming, retching, and pleading for her life. As far as I can tell, the tape recording was never released to the public, but it was played in court during Ian Brady's trial. A transcript of the recording was taken, which is now pretty easy to find online. Despite not being able to hear the audio, it's still disturbing to read what happens on the tape. For most of it, Brady and Hindley are trying to make Leslie Downey keep a gag in her mouth. Leslie repeatedly asks what they want to do with her, and she calls for her mother and her father. To give you an idea, one excerpt reads like this. Leslie says, "It hurts me. I want to see Mummy, honest to God." Brady, "Put it in." Leslie, "I'll swear on the Bible." Brady, "Put it in, hurry up now. The quicker you do this, the quicker you'll get home." Leslie, "I've got to go because I'm going to go out with my mama. Leave me please, help me will you?" Brady, "Put it in your mouth, you'll be alright." Leslie, "Will you let me go when this is out?" Brady, "Yes. The longer it takes you to do this, the longer it takes you to get home." Leslie, "What are you going to do with me first?" Brady, "I'm going to take some photographs. Put it in your mouth." What I find most disturbing is the end of the transcripts. The voices become drowned out as a record begins to play. The music was later identified as the Ray Conniff Singers album, We Wish You a Merry Christmas. At first, it starts out with the song Jolly Old St. Nicholas. In the background, Brady and Hindley are talking, but the person taking the transcript can't tell what they're saying. The song then changes to the little drummer boy, and 3 loud snaps are heard. This was Brady extending the legs of his tripod, setting up the camera. He was getting ready to take the pictures of Leslie. Then some footsteps are heard, and the recording stops. It seems to me particularly sick that just as the worst of the abuse was about to begin, and on the day after Christmas, they start to play a Christmas record. Perhaps they just put it on to drown out Leslie's screams, but the choice of music seems deliberate, as if it was chosen as some sort of perverted joke. There were 2 tapes in the bag, and on them were 3 copies of the same recording. Ian Brady had ambitions to break into the illicit pornography markets. It makes me wonder, why would he make copies of this? Did he plan to distribute it? Perhaps he had made other copies and distributed them before he was caught. It's just speculation, of course. I just find it strange that he made multiple copies when he was going to just keep it for himself. It also brings up the question of whether he only recorded Leslie Ann Downey or if he recorded his other murders too. Another murderous couple from the UK that recorded their crimes was Fred and Rose West. Now, if you want to get an idea of the true depth of depravity of this couple, I recommend the book Happy Like Murderers by Gordon Byrne. It's one of the best true crime books I've read. It really gets across the atmosphere of being in the West's home and what they were like as people. But as I'm focusing on lost media in this video, I'm going to just give a brief overview of their crimes, but it probably doesn't get across just how messed up this couple were. Between them, Fred and Rose murdered at least 12 children and young women between the years of 1967 and 1987. The majority of these killings took place at their home at 25 Cromwell Street in Gloucester, and a lot of the bodies were buried in the cellar and the garden of the house. Most of the killings were done for sexual gratification. Fred and Rose were obsessed with sadomasochistic bondage, both with willing and unwilling partners. Some of these unwilling partners included their own children. Their home became a sort of doss house for various teenage runaways and drug addicts, and it was usually from this constant stream of easily missed girls that they picked their victims. Most of the torture took place in the West's bedroom or in the cellar, where they had a bed set up in a corner specially. Police also found holes in the cellar beams which seemed to have been used for suspending their victims from. They never admitted exactly what they did to the victims, but from the state of the bodies, a few things can be deduced. Most of them were covered in multiple ligature marks from where they were tied up. Some of them had fractures to the skull, meaning they were smashed over the head with a hammer. To silence their victims' screams, their mouths would often be gagged with ropes or cloth. One corpse was found with a belt tightly wrapped under the jaw and over the top of the head, clamping the mouth shut. The worst thing, I think, was the body of 15-year-old Shirley Hubbard, found with her head encased in a mask of brown parcel tape. The adhesive tape was wound around her head 11 or 12 times. 2 plastic tubes were then inserted into her nostrils to allow her to breathe. I can't imagine what horrors she must have experienced, being unable to see or scream and hardly able to breathe whilst those tortures were being inflicted upon her. Now, as we're talking about lost media in this video, you're probably wondering if any recordings were made of these murders. I can't find a satisfactory answer to that question, but it's very likely. See, Fred West had another obsession, which was watching Rose have sex with other men, particularly West Indian men, who he would invite round to the house to fuck his wife free of charge. He even set up a two-way mirror in the bedroom so that he could watch in secret as Rose bedded multiple men a night. He also set up a video camera to record the sex acts. Sometimes he would be in there holding the camera, other times it would be set up on a tripod so that he could watch it later. He would distribute these tapes around the neighbourhood in an effort to entice more men to come and visit Rose. When police raided his house, they found 7 different video cameras and hundreds of pornographic tapes. I can't find any reports that say that any of these tapes contained the murder of his victims, and you'd think if they found Fred and Rose's homemade snuff movies, then that would have made it into the news. The exact content of these tapes, as far as I can tell, has never been fully divulged, and probably never will be, but there does seem to be some footage still out there, as this news story suggests. Now, I've only been able to find this archive of it, but apparently sometime in 2000, a police raid on a house in London turned up a video of Rose West abusing children, some of them as young as 5. The article goes on to say that whilst police knew that Fred made copies of his tapes for friends, this was the first evidence they'd found that his recordings had seen a wider distribution. The weird thing is, I can't find any other references to this story. I think something like this would be bigger news, but I can only find it on this archive site, so it's a bit of a mystery. If this story is true, it seems that there are some recordings still out there from Cromwell Street, and they're in private collections of some very disturbed individuals. I imagine a lot of people who did have tapes from Fred West decided to destroy them after Fred and Rose were arrested. As for the possible existence of the snuff movies, I've considered that there might be a secret stash of tapes somewhere. If Fred and Rose did record the murders, then they might have taken extra care to hide the evidence. Fred did like to keep trophies from his victims. Most of the corpses, when unearthed, were missing bones, usually fingers and kneecaps. Before burying his victims, Fred would remove these parts and keep them for himself. But these missing pieces have never been found, so it's likely that Fred had a secret hiding place somewhere. Could he also have had a secret stash of videotapes somewhere? That is a bit of wild speculation on my part, but even in 2021 police are still digging up places associated with Fred West in the hopes of finding more evidence, so who knows what horrors are still waiting to be unearthed. The subject of private recordings made by serial killers is a rich vein of contents. There are many more so-called lost recordings, but I thought I'd just focus on these 2 cases today and then return to the subject in a future video. So thanks for watching the video, and thanks to everyone supporting the content on Patreon and PayPal. It's much appreciated, and let's face it, this video is not getting monetized, so thanks a lot everybody who is helping to keep the channel going. If you want another video about a killer couple that recorded their crimes, check out my video about Carla Homolka and Paul Bernardo. And if you're new to the channel and you've stuck it out this far, why not subscribe? Okay, until next time, goodbye.